Please don't range. They're so good. Oh, yeah. What's up, Smolensk? How you doing? 17 Torp hits. Hold on. We might be good with Torps, guys. Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships, and we're taking a look at the new Z-52 Legendary upgrade today. Perfect timing, as I just had an updated look at Z-52 and its gun build variation with ship request, so I'm rather familiar with how this ship is playing right now. The Legendary mod has been changed. This is making Z-52 more of a Torp boat. This upgrade is in your 5th slot, so competing with standard concealment mod. Very challenging for destroyers, as your concealment is maybe the #1 priority of building out your DD. You just need better concealment than the enemies. Being first spotted is usually going to mean you take so much more damage, even if you do have more DPM than the opponent. A lot of the time, whoever shoots first is getting a massive advantage. So 5th slot, it's a little tricky. We still get 5% detection bonus, not the full 10%, but 5% is nice to have. But we get now torpedo speed of plus 12%, 15% reload time on the Torps, which was still there in the previous Legendary upgrade. And now we also get plus 5% dispersion to enemies attacking our ship, which is nice because that is also found on the concealment upgrade. A small bonus there, but worse dispersion means you probably will live just a little bit longer, especially when you're in a small destroyer. So that's the main upgrade here, is small bonus to the dispersion of enemies firing at you, and the bonus to Torp speed went from 5% up to 12%. These Torps are now very fast, 85 knots if you fully build for them. And that means it's extremely fun to use these Torps. They reload in less than a minute, and they go so quick that there's not a lot of lead time. You don't have to do a lot of predicting. It's quite easy to land these torpedoes now. Unfortunately, though, as you can see, we're getting outspotted by the enemy Venom there and taking a lot of damage. Or rather, we're getting shot at a lot, which usually results in taking a lot of damage. We got lucky to dodge a lot of that incoming fire. Not a huge change here, honestly, and yet I had an absolute blast playing Torp boat Z-52. A lot of that comes down to matchmaker, right? When people are pushing into you, you have a massive advantage. And with 10.5 kilometer range on the Torps, a lot of 10 kilometer, 12 kilometer radars even, it's a little tricky to make that work in the average match. But when everybody pushes into you, namely a Harugamo that pushes into our smoke hydro gimmick, yes, we still have this power. It doesn't have as much DPM as we had with the full gun build, but it's still going to be enough to take this guy out. It's extremely powerful, this gimmick. Usually, people don't just walk in like this. I think I got a little fortunate on the matchmaker. My team is playing pretty far back, so that's incentivizing the enemy team to push, right? This is the dream scenario for a lot of Torp boats. Any Torp boat is probably going to do well here. I particularly enjoy the bonus to our torpedo reload time here, thanks to the Legendary mod. And when people are pushing into you, the 6.4 kilometer detect versus 6.1 that we would get with the full concealment, that 0.3 isn't so bad to deal with. It still hurts though, certainly. Think of it this way, you're giving up 0.3 kilometer detect for 12% Torp speed as well as 15% Torp DPM, leading you to just chuck the Torps out whenever, sometimes landing a bunch of random Torps on some of those poor destroyers. They're fast, it's hard to dodge these torpedoes. And that's a key point I want to make here. The bonus to speed is somewhat negated by the fact we no longer have that 10% torpedo detectability bonus that this Legendary mod used to have. I do think that the torpedo speed metric is much more valuable than torpedo detectability, right? The faster the Torps are, the harder it is to react to them, but also the less lead you have to give. If you just have better Torp detect but not better Torp speed, you gotta lead a lot more. There's a lot more that can happen in the time it takes for your Torps to actually get out to 10 kilometers, let's say. So for me personally, I see that as a pretty massive buff, even though on paper, you know, it doesn't look that impressive. I really do like that Torp speed and not really worried about the Torp detection all that much. But honestly, surprisingly little difference between the previous Legendary mod that I kind of just wrote off as completely bad. I had never really played with it before, and that was a massive mistake, because I had a great time here, and so little has changed that Honestly, it's probably still around the same as it was before this change. The daring upgrade also, that legendary mod, making daring more of a torp build, makes me really regret not playing torp build daring, or at least hybrid build daring, with its old upgrade, because that one got a change where you still get full concealment at 10% in the 5th upgrade slot now, where Z-52, you do have to deal with this worst penalty, but the penalty to main gun reload on daring hurts it a little bit. The thought of having full daring reload at just the cost of 5% concealment sounds pretty amazing. I am having some regrets right now, guys. I really do love this idea that we give up 0.3 kilometer detect for massive bonuses to our torp tubes while retaining full gunpowder. Now, in these games, I was running the full torp build. I was all in, max reload, like 58 seconds without adrenaline rush, and full speed, right? Getting us up to 85 knots. But you could always just run this legendary mod and still go full gun build. You just gain massive bonuses to your torps, making them much more usable without having to sacrifice any of the gunpowder. I think that is a really interesting way to play Z-52. Now, you have to play a little more passive because of this concealment disadvantage. It's a little harder to make use of the smoke hydro gimmick, but you still can, right? You still can if you play your cards right. It's early game that you just have to be a little bit more passive on that cap control early on. Later game, when you can get flanks going, 0.3 kilometer detect, okay, let's be honest, isn't that big of a deal considering the amount of lag that goes into spotting an enemy ship. If you're both running at full speed towards each other, 0.3 detect is not that big a deal, given how long it takes for the spotting system to actually kick in and get the enemy ship spotted on your screen to start locking onto and actually start dealing damage. It's a downside, though, when you're trying to play the reversing in roll, that kind of thing, into caps, as well as, well, running torp build into radars, right? What do? 10.5 kilometers of range into 10 kilometer and sometimes 12 kilometer radars is very difficult. This is what you got to do, right? We sit just outside of Des Moines radar range to keep them lit for our teammates to shoot at. Hopefully they take them out. In the meanwhile, playing against a Gdansk. Maybe the summary of my initial video on Z-52 the other week was that Hydro, 6 kilometer Hydro, is insanely powerful on a destroyer in a world of radars. 7.5, 9 kilometer, 10 kilometer range radars. Yeah, the gimmick is not as powerful as it once was, so catching people off guard is a little more tricky. We do at least, though, still have half a kilometer on this Des Moines radar to actually get the torps out. And notice how the torps kind of line up with our reload here. As the torps are getting to the max range, they're pretty much loaded again to go. So very fun to make use of. Colombo gets the shot in. See, this is how you deal with the radars if you're in a torp boat or a gunboat that doesn't have the best shell velocity, that kind of thing. You just have to keep them lit, and eventually, hopefully, your teammates will take them out. And our torps managed to get them. Now, if that's a 12 kilometer radar, different story. What I would have done differently there then is probably stayed just within the 12 kilometer radar, waited until they used it, and then know I have around a 2-minute window to get a little closer to launch the torps and then back off again. That would have been the idea. Gdansk getting low, and we still have guns. We may as well still use them. Yeah, a bit of a yoink here. Okay, caught. I'm sorry. But he got behind the island. None of my teammates would have been able to shoot him. We got to take him out, right? We secure kills. We got to finish the flank, right? Okay. I had to leave that in, though, because you still should be using your guns, even if you're running a full torp build. I think that's what I like the most about playing Z-52 with full torps, or even daring the other time with full torps, is we still have incredible gunpowder. Z-52 in particular with its armor piercing, right? That's why I'm trying to stay dark until I find someone's broadside. I'm not just opening up with my HE whenever I can. I'm trying to reposition, find the broadside opportunity, and then open up. That's the idea, because that's the power of Z-52. The HE here isn't really all that good outside of the 32 millimeters of pen. But what I want to mention is that this is essentially Lighthouse for destroyers, right? We talk about Lighthouse cruiser builds, right? Running top grade gunner, running outnumbered, these kinds of things. And taking a little worse conceal to gain big buffs to your DPM on your torpedoes while retaining big gunpowder. It's kind of just Lighthouse Z-52, no? I think that's why I enjoyed it so much, is I always thought run conceal, run conceal, run conceal. It's always bad to have worse conceal on these destroyers, especially some of these hybrids, or in past years, the most powerful gunboats that have now been power crept, right? there's much better gunboats at this tier with better utility, right? Z-52 is not what it once was. So I always thought run could seal, full could seal, always. But after playing it, I think I was a little too close-minded. 0.3 detect isn't so bad. Man, now I really wish that I had played old Daring Legendary mod. Although there are some other changes, with more significant changes with Daring Legendary mod, where they added a bunch of Torp speed to it, right? Where that no longer was the case. I really like the speed on the Z-52 Torps in particular here. It feels a bit like I'm playing Holland Torpedoes. Shorter range, yes, but a lot more damage, right? Remember that Holland does like 10,000 alpha damage, and sure, Z-52 Torps aren't the highest alpha damage, but 14,400 alpha damage. I'm gonna leave this full clip in here because I want you to see just how quickly these torpedoes reach their target, and that you're constantly torping as the torps run out of range, right? As our torps get to 10.5 kilometers, your torpedoes are reloaded again. That's a really fun playstyle too. It doesn't feel like you're waiting for a couple minutes between torpedo salvos, and that's really all you have. I think that's one of my issues with Shimakaze. It certainly would have dev struck a lot more here, but we're still doing some decent damage. Shimatorps certainly do a lot more damage in that regard. But maybe I'm just impatient, right? I don't like waiting. That's what it comes down to. So for me, right, this is actually quite a lot more fun. And in particular, that I still have decent gunpowder. I feel like I can defend myself against some of the more powerful gunboats, or even just regular hybrid DDs, that kind of thing. If they come try to fight me for the space on the flank, I feel like I'm not so helpless. Where in Shimakaze, yeah, Shimakaze guns can hit hard, but at the end of the day, you're still just at a massive disadvantage against some of the best gunboats, which are what most people play, right, when contesting areas of the map. So really, really value that. Here's an opportunity again to just see how fast the torpedoes are. That speed, right? I value the speed over the concealment, because without it, I don't think these torps reach in time for this Sicilia. Either he gets angled in time, or just straight up is able to avoid that whole salvo because, well, the island would have blocked my leading him a little bit more. In this case here, 4 kilometers away, and the torps are still going to get there very quickly. San Martin with the 9-kilometer radar here, so we're in a little bit of a tricky situation. Don't want to open up just yet, but we will have to use our smoke screen here soon. Unless Cecilia just walks around the corner. I mean, you already saw the clip, right? Oh man, it feels good. Consistent damage out of these torpedoes. Maybe I'm just bad with normal torps, I don't know, but the speed really helped me to feel like I could land more consistent torps, as well as just sending out more often, okay? Not second guessing myself into thinking, well, I got a 2-minute reload on these torpedoes or more sometimes. I gotta make it count, putting all that pressure on myself, and then, you know, overthinking what the enemy's gonna dodge and then missing everything. Here, no, you just send them out, and you just happen to hit a ton of them, at least in this battle. Broadside San Martin, still running full torp build and getting a lot of damage out of the AEP, right? Not the HE so much, but the AEP. Still use your guns. And I think that's what I love. So, again, that's what I love so much about playing destroyers, is that I feel like I have a lot of options to impact the battle. I can contest caps, I can go after enemy DDs, I can contest areas of the map, right? Like my team completely gave up on the 1-2-3 lines here, and we're doing a great job of doing some spotting, that kind of role too. But if we get run at by an enemy Kleber, let's say, or Harugumo that easily out DPMs things like Shimakaze, or other majorly torp-focused destroyers like Jaeger or Bantam, things like that, you just massively are lacking gunpowder. And I really, really like playing these ships that traditionally have at least decent gunpowder with this torp build. Although 10.5 kilometer torp range, it's sometimes a little bit sad. These are games where I got very fortunate. Remember, we had a lot of enemy ships that are just pushing into us. These were not blowouts in my team's favor where the enemy team just runs off the map and you never land a single torp in that battle. Those are rather common, right? Even Vincent here, pushing around this corner, we're able to clip him with a couple of these torpedoes just because of that torp speed bonus. I think that is a really nice addition that they have added now, up from 5% to 12% torpedo speed. It's not nothing. It certainly mattered in a lot of these games. And yes, this one did end in our defeat, but we fought valiantly, I think. I think we did a pretty good job. And notice we have one set of consumables remaining. My build actually does not include Superintendent. If I'm more focused on torpedoes, I'm probably not as playing as aggressive, and there's less pressure on me to use all of my consumables or have another set towards the end of the game. So that's why I kind of was able to give up Superintendent, as we'll see coming to the build. But yeah, 17 torpedo hits in that one. Very fortunate on the matchmaker, but a good time, man. I had a lot of fun playing with the legendary mod on Z-52. The gun build still works. It's still very solid, but it's really hard to make the smoke hydro gimmick work to try and force that, which was kind of what I was trying to do in the initial video on Z-52 through ship request the other week. So does this mean that everybody should go out and get the Z-52 legendary mod? It's absolutely incredible. No, okay. This is an alternate playstyle for Z-52. If you're looking to breathe a little fresh life into this ship, play a little more Torp focused, I think it's really fun. However, I'm not going to get it on my main account. This is one of the press accounts I've been given to make videos for you guys, which is really cool. It allows me to test some of this stuff out. Run full Torp build Z-52 with this legendary mod. I just don't see myself playing Z-52. Okay, that's really what it comes down to. This mod is really fun, but Z-52 in itself is not the best destroyer these days. I would much rather play that Daring build. I'm more tempted to get Daring's legendary mod, even with that penalty to its main gun reload. It still has way better DPM than Z-52, much more consistent in that regard. And it's got healing, right? No healing on this ship outside of Lucian's proc, which if you're running Torp build, you're playing flanks, you're trying to get yourself spotting for your team, you should be able to activate this quite reasonably once, maybe 2 or even 3 times throughout a battle. It's possible. So you can get a little bit of healing that way, but it's not very consistent. More than likely, you've got your Lucians on a different ship, I would suggest, but that is worth considering as an option. Here is the build that I was running for this video. I did try it a little bit after with a hybrid build, which I'll show you in a second, but all the footage here was with the full torpedo build. I did want to run main veteran AA specialist, though, instead of superintendent. We're playing a lot of open water when we're playing for torps like this, so I don't find myself needing the 4th smoke, for example. And I wanted to greed out a little bit of damage on those main guns. And with this one, we're still taking all of these torpedo upgrades. Again, I probably would want to swap over, but here we still get 58.5 second reload on those torpedoes. But we suffer on our main gun, 3.6 seconds, and we're lacking in dispersion too. So 85 knots and 58.5 second reload. Just swapping those 2 upgrades on our build, we now have a 68 second reload, nearly 69 second reload on the Torps. So 10 seconds worse, and we're missing out on 4 knots of speed just to gain pretty nice DPM on our main guns, as well as accuracy there. I'd probably recommend you go with that one instead of the full Torp build. And if you completely forgo any of the Torp upgrades now on the commander, as well as on your upgrades for your ship outside of the legendary mod, you still get 76 second reload on the Torps and 77 knots. That's still pretty good. Nothing else, just the legendary mod. That's pretty good. And then you have much, much stronger main guns, much better utility. You can decide if you want the full superintendent kit, or maybe you could decide you want something like Fearless Brawler to gain even more DPM situationally, or you could still just go with this kind of hybrid idea, which is likely how I would play my Z-52 if I were to get this legendary upgrade. A lot of good options and interesting ways that you can build Z-52 with this legendary mod, and I think that's how these legendary mods should be. Wargaming, if you're listening, hello. Can we not have them just be pure upgrades? Look at you, Columbo, still, even though you nerfed it this update. It's still too busted. Some of these upgrades are legitimate alternate playstyles. Others, it's just so obvious that they're an upgrade. Maybe it's a balancing feature where they feel like the ship isn't performing well enough, so they give it a busted legendary mod that everybody defaults to. I don't know what the reason is, but I much, much, much prefer this way, where it legitimately is an alternate playstyle that is seriously fun and worth checking out, like Z-52 here, Daring Torp build as well, but not just flat out better than the standard version. I think that's the better way to go for it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, though, about Z-52 and all these legendary mod updates. Maybe there's some that I haven't covered yet that you really want to see. We're getting closer to the next update for the game, so I'm not sure if I'm covering all of them, but let me know what ones that I haven't covered that you would like to see. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.